And what is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I'm host of Beyond the Woodline. Before we get started, I always like to talk about my little Bigfoot stuff that I've got going on. For those of you guys who don't know, I am the executive director for the JRG, which is a Jevening Research Group, and we're a Bigfoot group, man. We research all over the country. We have teams all over the country. Um, we have teams in. I got my list right here. I usually have it open, but here anyway. We have teams in Washington, Oregon, West Virginia, Maryland, Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee, New York State, Minnesota, and of course here in Texas. So if you guys are interested in joining a Bigfoot team, man, let me know. Uh, we'll talk on the phone or whatever, and we'll get you started. Whether or not you go into the field is totally up to you. You can do research from your phone, from your laptop, PC, whatever. You don't have to go out to the field. We don't require that. You can help us out any way you can, whether it's finding witnesses, finding hot spots, finding the history of locations, things like that. So if you want to help out, just connect with me at beyond.woodline@gmail.com. And yeah, and we'll go from there. So I know you guys don't listen to the show to hear me ramble on. Tonight I got with me Ben from Are They Really Here? What's going on, Mr. Ben?
Hey Joe, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited, and I absolutely love anything mysterious. So Bigfoot, aliens, you name it, I've got an interest in it. My specialty is definitely more geared towards UFOs and aliens, but I'm really excited to be on here today. So thank you, Joe. Thanks
Yeah,
for
man,
the
thanks
invite.
a lot, man, dude. It was great talking to you. It's been great communicating with you. Dude, you're a cool. You're really one of the coolest guys on TikTok, and you've got a lot of people that follow you, and I think that's a reflection of your channel, man.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So real quick, what got you into this field?
I mean, there's a few different aspects of my life that led me. I think I was almost not destined, but there's so many external forces that kind of pushed me into being interested in it to begin with. So I've always had a curiosity about astronomy as well as ancient civilizations. But the biggest thing probably would be my dad was really into it. As a kid, we really bonded over UFO documentaries and conversations about what could be out there. And that led me to just being not quite obsessed, but being very interested. It was one of those things I dove into. But the biggest aspect of my childhood and upbringing was actually seeing a UAP in person, and that was probably one of the most insane encounters I've ever had. I was just to go into the story if you're all right hearing it, Joe. I was about 15, 16 years old. I was with a group of friends. We were hanging out in a park. It was a late summer night, a beautiful night out, and we're all having a good time. Probably about between 6 to 10 of us, and I noticed two bright lights in the sky, and they were brighter than any star. And it wasn't an airplane because it was hovering in one place, or the two were hovering in one place, but they were circling each other like this and moving in very odd positions. Nothing that a plane could do, a helicopter. This was around 2010, 2011. So commercial drones weren't really a thing then. Neither were, I mean, drones were a thing, but they were those dinosaur looking plane things, right? They like what we saw in Interstellar. And so we watched for a while. And suddenly one of the orbs uh, broke like a cell, like it split like a cell. It went like pop, and now there were three, and the three of them were dancing around. That's the best word I can come up with to describe their movement, but they were dancing with each other almost, and we're all watching. And to this day, I can't explain it. Um, the best way I could possibly visualize it is the Longbow Apache 2A1 footage. If anybody is curious, go hunt that down on YouTube. It's fairly easy to find. About the 2 minutes 33 seconds, it performs similar, but still nothing like that. So that's probably the second thing. Another thing, when I was younger, I also was really interested in or I really liked music. So Blink 182, Tom DeLonge's been a very big force within the topic of the phenomenon. So I kind of followed him, though I might not agree with some of his views these days. He still was a very powerful presence in my upbringing as well. So I would say that's the trifecta right there. My dad seeing a UAP, and then just music kind of brought me into it.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you talked about your sighting because I had a very similar sighting. I was actually out Bigfooting with my buddy Walter, and afterwards we went to his house because that's I parked my truck over there, and so I went back to get my truck. We were outside talking a little bit, and we saw these two lights in the sky coming towards each other like that, and then they did a couple of circles, and then they just went their own separate ways. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, that was pretty interesting that you said that. And of course, I think I told you about when I was fishing. Man, it's probably a good 30 years ago at least. Um, yes, I'm that old. Um, I was nah, maybe closer to 20, but we were fishing, and the gentleman that I was with, he was maybe, I don't know, 40, 50 feet to my right. He goes, "Hey, Joe, look, what's that?" And he points up to the sky, and we see a craft, a freaking craft, you know. And this sucker was just so slow, uh, no wobble to it, super smooth, no lights, no sound. And a few miles down the road, there's a small airstrip where the smaller single engine planes come in, and you can hear them coming in. This thing was right above us, and you couldn't hear anything. But that was, yeah. So that was
Completely silent, eh?
completely silent, man. It was one of the craziest things. I think I sent you a picture of that too, of what, we only saw the bottom of it, so that was all that we could really see. But yeah, that was a pretty cool night for us, and uh, that was like my official entry to the UFO world. Even though I always believed in that kind of stuff. It was always cool, man. So, like, what's one of your favorite, whether it's stories or encounters that you personally have heard?
That's a great question. Lately, it's been probably the Virginia UFO story, but I won't get into that because that's oversaturated at the moment. Probably, if I would had to pick, it would be between either the Dulce base wars, which is
Mhm.
we're getting pretty far into the conspiracy theory territory, but I just find it so fascinating with one of the gentlemen involved, Bill Schneider. His credentials are verified. Either that or the Camburgus UFO incident, in which Dr. Roger Lear went out to Turkey for UFO hunting, very involved with implants and things like that, and actually got a footage of uh, potential beings in a craft. One of the two. So probably Dulce though. But which one would you like me to dive into, Joe?
Do the Dulce, because I
Dulce.
like that one too. But you probably are a little bit more. You probably know a lot better than I do.
So and that's actually perfect because it's really the story that launched Are They Really Here? If it wasn't for Dulce, Are They Really Here wouldn't exist. So just to get into a little background on Are They Really Here as well. So I've been doing Are They Really Here for about a year. I just first started just kind of doing fun videos going into the different either UFO sightings or stories, and Dulce was one that fascinated me just because of the insanity. So I did a video on it, and the first place we got to start with Dulce to explain what it is Dulce is theorized to be a deep underground military base that is hidden under Dulce, New Mexico. It's a very deep, apparently 9 levels, and there was an engineer who worked on the base named Bill Schneider, and this was late 70s, and his credentials have been verified. They are out there, and he noticed some strange gas coming out of the base at the time, and he decided to go investigate. And while he went into the base, he encountered 2 large, tall, what he described as gray aliens. And you or I, we love this stuff. We love the aliens, but I can guarantee you, if we encountered one person, we'd probably have a little bit of a panic, right? You're not used to seeing it, right? And Bill didn't have any idea what he was going to encounter down under in the first level, and he encounters these 2 beings. His first reaction is to shoot at one of them. And obviously, these extraterrestrials weren't too happy about that. And what led to that is what led into a firefight between these 2 extraterrestrials and an entire team of special forces. So there was about probably 60 to 100 Green Berets. I know 60 was apparently the body count of these Green Berets that got into a firefight with these extraterrestrials. And Phil escaped with some missing fingernails or missing toenails. He had like a hole blasted in his chest. I believe he developed cancer after as well. And he sat on this story for about 10 to 15 years. And he decided to come out about it in the early 90s and did a press conference on it and told the world about it. He got into some other deeper conspiracy theories as well, but I've always found the fact that his credentials are verified, and you compare him to a guy like Bob Lazar, who I completely believe. Bob Lazar is a very interesting individual, but his credentials can't be verified, and that's probably government interference, trying to make sure that his involvement in Area 51 and S4 are under wraps. But Bill came out, told the world about this, and within a year of coming out and telling the world about this, he took his own life, which I've talked to one of his closest friends, and he said that would never have happened. Bill would never have taken his own life. He apparently had choked himself with a catheter. And they said Phil would not go out like that. He warned us if he went out like that, they would that somebody was out to get him. And within a year of coming out and disclosing this type of stuff, that's a pretty big coincidence. The story is quite out there, so I do have some skepticism, but it's just one of those stories. Dulce, there's cattle mutilations going around, and Bigfoot's been sighted around Dulce. There's always been an air of mystery behind it, so it's one of my favorite stories because it has all of those aspects of the paranormal and the phenomenon, right? So that's basically Dulce in a nutshell. There's some other aspects too, like Tom Costello, a security guard at the base, came out and said that they're using it as some type of hybrid facility. Again, we're getting in the real weeds here, but that's allegedly what Dulce is for.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's always been one of my favorite stories too. Uh, it's very similar, I guess, the area to like Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Yes.
Or what's that other place with the triangle? What's it called?
Bermuda Triangle? No.
Not the Bermuda Triangle. It's somewhere else. It's also hit me as soon as we get off the air now, I bet. But it's also another one of those areas that have like paranormal UFO aliens and of course cryptids. So those kind of places always kind of fascinate me, and I would love to go visit one of those places if I ever get a chance.
Oh, for sure.
Bridgewater Triangle is what it is.
Sorry, what was it?
The Bridgewater Triangle.
Bridgewater. Okay, I actually haven't investigated that too much myself. I'll have to dive in after this podcast for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so what got you wanting to do your TikToks? Because, like I said, man, you're a pretty popular guy when it comes to doing your genre. What made you want to do that?
So this story happened. It's quite a bizarre story. So as I mentioned, my dad was really interested in it with me, and he passed away unfortunately early 2020. We're kind of expecting that to happen, but one of my childhood best friends who I grew up with is also has a deep fascination with UFOs. And he brought up the idea of starting a podcast together. And I said, that's a great idea. I've always been interested in content creation. I've always loved music and UFOs. And I never imagined myself doing something in UFOs in the alien sphere. I just loved researching it. It was one of those things, late at night, I always loved putting on the documentaries, but I never imagined myself actually making the content. But I said, hey, let's do a UFO podcast for sure. And we sat on it for a couple months. I'm sure you've heard other people too bring up the idea, let's make a podcast. Very few actually do it. So credits to you for actually getting this up. I know how much work it takes, but everybody has that idea, right? Not everybody has the strength to get it up and running, but a couple months down the line after that idea was brought up, I decided to start posting some artwork I had made. Like I like photo editing and I like creating videos, and I posted some artwork to TikTok, and within a day, and this had nothing to do with aliens, but within a day it got thousands of views, and I was like, whoa, maybe I can do something here. So I started posting more artwork. I was doing like fake glitches on TikTok, just kind of like spooky horror type creative content. And I would always end it with like, are they really here? More so referring to ghosts. But then it just struck me one day. I was like, wait a minute, I can do this for the podcast. Like we could do snippets for this. And I was like, I could call it, Are They Really Here? Mostly the Are They Really Here concept came from how other TikTokers would have kind of cryptic questions at the end, like, are they watching me? And I was like, are they really here? That's the perfect way to do it. But it's a great question because are they really here is fascinating to me, because I'm one of my other passions is philosophy, and I think that's a big thing that's missing from TikTok is that everybody's out trying to sell truth. They're trying to sell, hey, this is my truth of what's going on out there. And I really wanted to present interesting discussion surrounding the phenomenon without trying to force my views down other people's throats, to have the viewer come up with their own decision on what the phenomenon is, while still maintaining like both a skeptical but optimistic belief about it. So that's kind of how it got started. We would do mostly, we didn't have ourselves in the videos at first. And so the other gentleman who works with me, his name's Hank. He's kind of more behind the scenes. He's done a few videos. You might have seen him do a few videos, but we didn't do faces for a while. And then one day I was like, you know what, I just got to be in this. I got to kind of jump in full force. And I'm really glad I did, because this year has been one of the best years of my life.
Cool, man. Yeah. I love that you've got a passion for it too,
Thank you.
and when you're talking, I can hear your voice speed up, and I'm the same way. Like I'll talk calm and cool, but man, if I'm talking about Bigfoot or paranormal stuff, especially, man, I'll start rattling off, and you can't shut me up.
Yeah.
And you were doing that when you're on your live. You're like, I know I'm talking fast, and here you are right now. You're talking fast again because you get excited about it, and that's a good thing. I think a lot of people should be excited about what they do because I don't think there's a lot of people that do this kind of stuff that actually really have that passion. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They're just clout chasing or money chasing. And yeah,
Right.
I couldn't care about either of those. I'm just enjoying what I do and having the time of my life, to be honest. And hopefully it answers some questions for me, but it's the pursuit of the answer is the funnest part. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's the same thing why I do the Bigfoot thing because I'm looking for answers, but oftentimes you wind up with more questions than you do answers, and that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun of it. Um, so today we had like some major stuff get shaken up right in the UFO world, and you were like the first guy that I saw that had anything about it. So why don't you tell us about what happened? And you got a pretty good response off of that.
Yeah, I was about to say this is a perfect segue. We're talking about the are they really here question, and I think today is the closest we've ever been to actually answering that question. So, to fill in some of the viewers who might not be aware, we had an intelligence official, now whistleblower, come out today and testified to Congress that they've been lied to by many factions of the U.S. government. That we have these crafts, we have these UAPs. These retrieved crafts from Roswell, Virginia. They didn't specify which incidents, but we have these crafts, and they have been determined to have been non-human origin, which means, to just put it as simply as possible, we are not the only intelligent life out there. This person is David Grush. He's a high-ranking Pentagon official. He doesn't. There's no really apparent reason for him to lie. He's been verified by his claims have been verified by other intelligence officials. So to put it simply, intelligent life exists other than us. That's the bottom line.
Right. Yeah. So what do you think that means for the UFO world, and not just the UFO world, but for us in general?
But I mean, the first thing is we're not alone. The truth is out there. It could be closer to home. And what I'm really glad about is that we now have it's going to allow us to speak about this and not feel like it's a taboo subject. I know with the 2017, the Pentagon acknowledging UFOs was a huge step for us, but this is an even further step for us because now we can still continue this discussion without, people saying, well, it could just be our tech. It could just be military technology that hasn't been declassified yet, which some very well may be the case, but this tells us that these crafts are coming from somewhere else, whether that be from outer space, whether that be from cryptoterrestrials, which to sum it up is a species that is advanced that we're unaware of that exists from our own world, from our own planet, which is another theory that I've been really fascinated by lately. Also, we can get into a little bit more out there theories like interdimensional, time travel, stuff like that. But the fact is that these crafts are not from here. They're exotic, is the exact terminology used in the leaks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. It's one thing to be from this planet. It's another thing to be from somewhere else, right?
Mm.
And yeah, man, dude, I would love that. I would love to like for us as humans to be able to sit there and say, hey, there is other intelligent life, and even far superior intelligence to ours. And let's see, this has a comment from what I think they were sent here to help save our planet and get along with each other. Just my thought. What are your thoughts on when we have visitors?
I mean, I agree. I don't think there's any use of the fear mongering that I see happen so often with the media. I mean, not so much the media, but other TikToker conspiracy theorists as well. There just seems to be this driving force to be so afraid of the unknown, and I've never seen anything through. I mean, I've seen a few things that could possibly lead to something bizarre going on, but typically the phenomenon, just to categorize all of this together, seems to be pretty benevolent, if not neutral. They seem to be a bit of tricksters, like the infamous case with that Robert Salas brought to the public's attention, where they actually turned off one of our nukes, and at the exact same time, on the opposite side of the world, they turned on a Russian nuke in Soviet Union. This was during the Cold War, and it was almost to let us know that, hey, we have our finger on the button as well. Stop destroying each other. And if anything, I'm more afraid of other, like, humans that have that type of power than the extraterrestrials. I've never seen anything that makes me afraid, and I just think fear is just a something that we as a species need to kind of evolve past in order to better understand the unknown and what's out there. So I think that that's kind of to sum it up. I think I'm not too sure why they're here, if they're just observing us, if they're trying to help us, but I don't think it's anything we should be afraid of.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times they're here to maybe to nudge us in the right direction.
Right.
You know, maybe not necessarily interfere with us, but maybe just kind of give us a little nudge in the right direction. So, but going back to the developments of today, what was it that they actually said they had? Was it crafts? Was it bodies?
So just crafts. I mean, we're fairly certain they do have bodies. Like if we look at the Virginia case where the American military did come in and take the craft as well as the body. They did just specify crafts, both intact crafts as well as crashed partial aspects of the vehicle.
And did they say where these crafts were from?
Just that they were non-human intelligence. They didn't get too far into it. Just that Congress has been being lied to about them, and that there's some type of arms race going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of.
Right. Yeah, and I could totally see that too. And um, it's unfortunate if we use that technology for that. You know.
Yeah.
Do you think that these crafts that we've gotten a hold of, was that accidental or was that intentional by the um, what is called them ETs? Was that intentional or unintentional? You think?
That's a great question, and I have seen some people online hypothesize that these craft that they're intentionally crashing these crafts so that we can reverse engineer them, thus speeding up our evolution. Now, this is getting into something that I always try to stay as close to where I'm at in terms of how much I know, right? Like I don't know what their intentions are because obviously I've never talked to an ET, but that I think it's an interesting theory, especially if we look at the missing link of human evolution. It's very interesting to think, but I also think that people put these beings of the phenomenon too far up on a pedestal, because just because they have these advanced crafts doesn't mean that they can't crash, right? Just because, like, if we look at cars, how far we've come with cars in the last 100 years, we can still crash them, right? Where there's still room for biological error. The safety of the cars have gotten better, but I still think there's a possibility that, especially when they're in unfamiliar terrain, if they're not from this planet or if they're from a different type of ecosystem, it's very, very possible for them to crash their crafts or for them to malfunction. I think that any piece of technology or any life, any form of life is capable of error. So it is really hard to tell. But judging by some of the reports, like if we look at Virginia, that does not seem intentional. It does seem like the beings were scared when they encountered other humans. I mean, they were captured and then tested on. So I don't, just judging by that alone, I don't think it was on purpose per se.
Where was the crash? It's something I've heard recently, where I guess the soldier carries one of these beings, and he gets like the slime on him or whatever, and he winds up getting sick and dying. What was that one from? Do you remember?
That was Virginia. Yep. So that was
Oh,
Virginia. So in 1996, there was a flying saucer that crashed into a field near Virginia, Brazil, and a farmer had noticed it. He rushed up to help, thinking it was people in there, right? And he was shooed away by the military. Within days, within the city of Virginia, 3 girls were passing through an alleyway. They encountered the extraterrestrial. And then just around the block in that same area, 2 military officials encountered the being, and one of them captured the being and put it in the vehicle. Now, within weeks, I believe it was about a month after, his immune system was very compromised, and he developed a bacteria infection, as of the reports. But something was wrong. He said he felt all right, but something was really wrong with his immune system. Now, the being smelled a very, very strong, pungent odor of sulfur mixed with ammonia, and they seem to be of some type of other some other form of life. So just for the viewer's sake as well, we are not the only form of life. So we're carbon-based life, right? And we discovered about 12, 13 years ago that there's arsenic-based life forms. So that opens up doors to other types of life forms existing that might be toxic to us. Like think about, like, let's say you encounter some type of mushroom in the forest that might be poisonous. They could have spores. So this military official that encountered this being probably was sick from the being and encountering it, and maybe their immune systems didn't just match, but he passed away because of it. And his wife is sure of it. Other people who were around him were sure of it. It was just such a coincidence that this incident happened, and then he unfortunately died very shortly after.
Yeah, yeah. I'm inclined to believe that that's what happened. That whatever he got on him is what caused his immune system to shut down, because it's you're encountering something new. Your body is anyway.
Yeah.
Um, let's go back to to what we talked about earlier. So when we talked about like Congress has been lied to, right? Who's lying to them?
So it would be the different factions, and so if we look at the American government, it's so compartmentalized, right? We look at the history of Area 51. It was originally actually founded as a place to test nuclear weapons. Nobody thought to look at Area 51 as a place for the Manhattan Project's origins, right? Everybody thought Air Force or CIA, which it was eventually given to the Air Force and the CIA as a joint exercise of developing these advanced spy planes, things of that nature. But there's so many different factions of the U.S. government. And if you look at Congress, they're the elected officials, right? They're elected by the people. They're essentially civilians that are put into positions in the government. We have to look beyond that and start looking at the more compartmentalized areas. Like only recently we were aware of things like the NSA. So we're not exactly sure what type of agencies. I haven't dived in too far. I mean, there's 14 hours of testimony from this individual, David Grush, but I think we're going to learn a little bit more about the politics within the need to know of the black government agencies that are kind of off the books. I mean, even look at Area 51. They don't tell the president anything. He has to go through loopholes just to figure things out, right? So I believe there are these groups and these agencies formed to keep that information away. And I think there's different factions that are not at war with each other, but the arms race I talked about earlier, right? And places like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, we know there's something strange going on there. Dulce, there's always been something going on where we think they could be researching or possibly looking into something that we don't know. There's so many secrets behind the wall of democracy that it's really strange to find out that Congress, the people we thought were maybe lying to us about UFOs, are actually also being lied to. And that's something I bring up on a lot of my lives, where people think that the government knows everything, that they're hiding all this from us. But I think that a vast majority of the government are just as much in the dark as us. I think it's just it's almost like a shadow government hidden within the government that is hiding this. And who's behind that, we don't know. Hopefully this reveal or this whistleblowing will lead us in that right direction, but it's kind of spooky.
And I always say that I now see why the government doesn't tell us everything, and my main reason for that is because look how we acted with toilet paper.
Mm.
We scooped up all the damn toilet paper we could find.
Yeah.
Uh, and then we wonder why the government doesn't want to tell us any damn thing.
Well, that
But
too, and there's a lot of individuals. One thing that drives me crazy on TikTok is the Project Bluebeam conspiracy. That there's a lot of individuals that seem to think that the government is planning to fake an alien invasion with holograms to install a one world government with a new religion, which to me just doesn't make any sense at all. Like that seems like $1 trillion mistake. It would take one mistake for somebody to be like, "Hey, that's a hologram." There's so many better ways for a government to influence or even manipulate a population. But that is a big issue that I've come across, even dealing with comments and things like that. So that, to me, also people thinking that these, other intelligent life forms are demons. It's kind of frightening. It almost feels like we're still not ready for disclosure. And part of me almost wants to say, hey guys, slow it down. We're still not ready. Let's back it up. But obviously my excitement and my passion for the topic, I'm still like, you know what, just give it to us now.
right, yeah, yeah, and you're right about that. It's like it's the same thing in the Bigfoot world. Uh, People will go automatically to Bigfoot and say it's a demon.
Yeah. It's
It's like
You know what my theory on that is? That it's individuals who, everybody has their own perception of reality, right? And when their perception of reality is fundamentally challenged, they'll jump to the first thing that will make them feel comfort, like, oh, it's a demon. This is something that I can fight with my faith or something like that. I think it's just kind of the defense mechanism of the mind to push away the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that I think fear plays a big role in that, and it's important for people not to get scared, and not to think that everything is out to get them. And I think you mentioned that earlier. Fear is a good way to control people.
Mhm. It
Yeah,
is. It's as they say in Dune, fear is the mind killer, or fear is the
right.
path of the dark side, if we quote Star Wars.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Hey, what do you think about abductions? Is that something that happens? Is that a real phenomenon?
I so abductions interest me a lot because they're so frequent and so consistent throughout the phenomenon. I have obviously, or I haven't obviously, but I have not been abducted, so I can't claim if it's true or not. But just based on the witness testimony, there's so many individuals have almost the same testimony. It's powerful. It really is. Um, so I'm not sure if you've ever jumped into some of my lives where I interview individuals who claim to be abducted, and I always try to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I say, this is your truth. You should feel comfortable here when sharing these experiences. I still I'm very fascinated by it, but what interests me most about it is the physical evidence left behind by these abductions. We look at Dr. Roger Lear, who's done a lot of research, and he's done surgeries on these abductees, and he's found implants and strange material that seems to be of exotic origin. They send these little metal pieces, these implants, off to metallurgy labs, and they don't know what these things are made of, and they look strange, and they almost look like some type, not a chip, but something that you'd see in a science fiction where it looks like technology, but it's a little, it's just something you would never imagine being found in a human body. It's definitely not organic. So that's what I'm most interested in, just because with physical evidence, it backs up the claims that these abductions really did happen. They're not just night terrors. I'm sure there are some abductions out there that were night terrors, and they can be astrewed to that. But then you can reverse the question and go, what if night terrors are just abductions being hidden as night terrors? We're getting into the real philosophical area there, but
Right.
yeah, it's a fascinating part of the phenomenon, and if anything, um, I think it would be for either their observation, or maybe for, there are theories that they are among us, and they could be studying us to find out how to camouflage around us. But that's something that I'm still, I don't know, because I haven't seen any like evidence to fully push me into being like, okay, this is 100% what they're doing. It's just something I'm kind of feeling around still. I always am skeptical when I'm putting my toes out there and saying, hey, this is true, this is not true, because I try to absorb all from the phenomenon, and then once I'm fully comfortable, I can say, hey, this is what's going on.
Right. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I've talked to a lot of people uh, who claim to be abducted. Actually, quite a few Canadians, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it seems like Canada's probably is actually a pretty good hotspot for UFOs anyway. Also, but yeah, I've got friends in I think it's Edmonton, out in that area, that have have had abductions, and uh, they've sent me pictures, and even pictures of an X-ray that they had of an implant, supposed implant. Like, again, they live in Canada. I'm here in Texas, so it's kind of hard to say that's a real X-ray, right? But it's interesting, and I've talked to people here in Texas, who have told me the same thing. That they've been abducted. There's who's the one that the family? It was here in Dayton, Rich, right outside of Houston. That
Oh, the fire, the with the diamond.
yeah,
Yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Yeah, it was a mother, her mother, and so a
the little
mother,
boy.
grandmother, and her son, and they were driving down a road, and this diamond craft comes out with fire. I don't remember abduction being part. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
Actually, so she touched
no,
the craft. She got radiation burns, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
and they wind up suing the government because the government was like, no, that's one of our planes. That was one of our things, right?
Yeah.
So now you admitted that's yours. So now they had to pay the people.
Yeah, they were probably like, oh no, we have three witnesses. Let's just that definitely taught them, because we haven't seen the government coming out and say, oh, it was one of ours since. That was probably a big oops by them.
Yeah, yeah, but that being here in Texas and right outside of Houston, like I said, that's one of my favorite stories. Another favorite story is the guy that was in the tree and he had the robot coming at him, and he shot it a couple times with his bow and arrow. Do you remember
Is this the
that incident?
Falkville Metal Man?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And it gassed him a couple times.
It,
He tied himself to the tree.
yeah, it's been a while since I've read into that one. That one is very bizarre. It almost feels like it's bordering on the cryptid world, and those are some of my favorites too. And it gets into it, but um, yeah, I remember it reminded me of the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz a little bit. I'm a little rough on that story as well, but Betty and Barney Hill is probably my favorite, because that's the first big abduction case, right? And that happened not too far from here either, or from where I live in Canada, which is near Niagara. Uh,
Yeah.
and that a couple was driving back from their honeymoon in Niagara Falls, and there was a strange craft seen above them. They had reports of missing time. There was physical evidence left behind, which is probably my favorite part. There was concentric circles left on the car, and back then, like, this was unheard of, right? So for them to come forward in two, I know, like, I think this is actually relevant to the case for them coming forward back, but this was back like 50s, right? So, and they were an interracial couple. So Betty was white and Barney was black, and them to come forward and draw that much media attention onto them of these wild claims was very brave of both of them, especially in that political climate. And to have the physical evidence, concentric circles on the car, to have like actual like radiation on them, it's absolutely insane, especially that being the first story. And that started opening the can of worms for other abduction stories, which were also very similar. The missing time, the physical evidence being left behind, seeing a craft before it, the car mysteriously stopping. It's all very bizarre.
Yeah, and actually Barney, he was kind of in denial about it,
Yes. Yeah.
and until he went under hypnosis.
Hmm.
After that, I guess he kind of he couldn't deny it anymore at that point, because his story meshed up almost perfect with with Betty's. They had a little bit, two different abductions. They had a little bit different perspectives of what happened, but it was pretty much the same thing. And so that was pretty interesting. And also, like, I've heard stories of abduction stories of people who've been abducted and come back and they have on like somebody else's clothes.
Hmm.
That's always a weird thing too, or clothes that don't belong to them anyway, right?
Or they're
Um,
found in impossible places, like if they park their car, and it generally happens in national parks and things like that, where they'll park their car and be found miles away in different terrain, that is not even close to it, which actually leads in, I'm sure you're very very familiar with the missing 411 type cases.
I was just about to ask you, yeah.
And then that's where it feels like all the paranormal and phenomenon starts mixing in, where we're getting into the disappearances in the national forest and the Bigfoot, right? So that I love the hunting into the atmosphere, though it does kind of freak me out a little bit,
Right, right. And yeah, I love the missing 401 stuff, and I don't think uh, I think you get like different groups, whether it's the cryptid groups, the UFO groups, the paranormal groups. They have their own opinion, right? But I think it's a little bit of everything that happens, in as far as people going missing. Um, I think there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know about, you know. And still, even at this point, UFOs and aliens is one of them. Even though we're learning more and more every day, it seems like. Um, what do you think about the Pentagon when they came out and they were like, look at this, the gimbal video or the Tic Tac video? What did you think about that when they came out and talked about that?
I think it was a big step in the right direction, just to get the public behind it. But it does also frustrate me at the same time that it takes media coverage to get the public to start believing people. It's like they won't believe it unless CNN says it. It is a little frustrating, because we have these doctors, these scientists coming out and saying, hey, this thing is real, but it takes some media giant to come out and say, hey. And I know it was the Pentagon that came out, but obviously it was CNN, it was Fox News, it was New York Times, all the big media. Obviously New York Times was the one who broke it, but um, it was a very big step in the right direction. I think it is for that, because anybody else who's studied the phenomenon, anybody who's even seen a UAP knows there's something in our skies that we can explain. They're breaking the laws of physics, but it was just very nice for such a giant government entity to acknowledge it and to say, yeah, we don't know what this is either. It was exciting for sure. Though it is a little overshadowed for me at this point for what was announced today, because I mean UFOs even back then we could have explained it away by the technological elite, something Eisenhower had mentioned, like maybe some group of elite scientists that have been, not scientists, but let's say the elite as in terms of rich, they could have been hoarding technology that we're unaware of. It could have been black government projects that we're unaware of. The UFOs could have still been explained by something terrestrial, right? But today, just adding on to that is kind of like the cherry on top, that now we can look at it as, okay, this is non-human intelligence. But yeah, I was very excited back then. I'm still excited now, and my dad was around back then, so we definitely enjoyed watching there was a spree of new documentaries. The Phenomenon came out, James Fox came out after that. The Bob Lazar documentary came out, which was the last documentary I watched with him. There was just so much exciting news and content to dive into. And yeah, I wouldn't be here either probably if all that didn't happen back then. I think it was all like domino effects leading for me to eventually be sitting here talking to you, Joe.
And Nathan here has a comment. He says, perhaps Amy Allen's psychic mediumship was accurate. She claimed aliens have the abilities to travel through the spiritual realm and into the living. What do you think about that? Do you think aliens, extraterrestrial beings, do they travel through a spiritual realm, or are they manipulating, space and time?
So great question, Nathan. It's very, I always try to keep an open mind on this, because if we look at, let's say, what we consider less intelligent life, like let's say a bird or insects, and they're only aware of the reality around them, right? Like, so like an ant might not look up and recognize us as life or even intelligent life. And ants are very um, uh, what's the word? They're very driven. They're very driven species. So when we look at life, we only look at it through the lens of what we recognize as what life is, and that's generally either bipedal, four legs, insects, and we exist in the physical world, and we don't have the capabilities to access what's beyond this reality. And who's to say there isn't? And there is definitely. I mean, look at paranormal. I actually didn't believe in ghosts until very recently, and I still am very skeptical of it, but I've seen some very interesting footage and some very interesting things that make me wonder, like, what is this reality really, and what do we have the capability of breaking in terms of space-time? Now, there are some people out there that theorize, Tom DeLonge being one of them, and this is where I do agree with him, that, or I don't necessarily agree, but I find it interesting that maybe they've advanced or evolved to the point where they can not weaponize, but they can manipulate consciousness in a way that we can't even fathom. That they can bend reality in a way that we can't even fathom. And if they're moving through a different plane of existence, we're giving credence to the interdimensional theory at this point too. I think it could be very possible, because we only see life as this in this box. So we need to start breaking the box down and looking outside of it. So it's very possible. And I do think that the paranormal world and the phenomenon is connected in certain aspects. For me, it's just finding a little bit more answers. So I always say I love entertaining the ideas, but until I do see a little bit more either physical evidence or explanation for it, I don't say for sure yet. So it's interesting to me, though, definitely.
Yeah. And see, I'm the same way. Like, people will put paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs all in the same box, right?
Right.
They'll say they're all one and the same, or they'll be able to separate it, but they'll still say, well, there's still, like, Bigfoot can still jump through portals. Bigfoot is still a spiritual being. It's still a paranormal entity or whatever. Uh, I think they're all three separate things, but you know, until we are able to capture one of these beings and study it properly, or whatever. I hate to say the word capture, right?
So I agree with you there, Joe, except the one thing I've been changing my mind a little, not changing a little bit, but I've been seeing more connection is the paranormal and the UFOs lately. When it comes to Bigfoot, I completely believe in Bigfoot. I think it's totally plausible that there is a primate living in the wilderness that we're just not aware of, and it's just hiding from us, because that seems totally reasonable to me. That doesn't seem as far out of the world as, let's say, flying saucers, which I also believe, right? The ghost stuff is where I do have a little bit trouble getting behind, because it's not something physical. It's not something that you can really explain without breaking your concept of reality, but it still interests me. So I completely agree. Though through my studies of the phenomenon, I'm starting to see a little bit more of a connection, and it is something I'd like to pursue further. Though I still do separate them. I still do keep them separate, and that's why you don't see me doing ghost videos on Are They Really Here. I have done 2 Bigfoot videos on Are They Really Here, but they're kind of big.
Okay, okay. I think they're all separate myself. I lived in a house. We had paranormal activity in that house. My whole family, we all been touched or poked or saw shadow figures. Walking around. And with that, I just don't think it's extraterrestrial. I think it's a spiritual thing or a paranormal thing. Really. Um, you brought up another interesting point at the very beginning when you talked about like ancient civilizations.
Mm.
So, do you think that there have been civilizations here that had uh, technology greater than what we have today?
I do think so. I think that it's kind of ridiculous to assume that we have a full picture of history. And again, I try to
Right.
stay skeptical, because I don't try to be one of those conspiracy theorists that just claims the amazing work of historians and archaeologists has been for nothing, and that they're lying to us. I think that's a little disrespectful for that portion of academia. But I do think that there is a bigger picture of history that we're missing. And I think that we evolved to the point of sentience far past 10,000 years, which is the expect. And I mean, we've proven that civilizations existed before 10,000 years. There's been ruins that have been dated 14,000, 15,000 now. They keep moving that bar back. But if we look at things like the pyramids, if we look at things like some of the greatest structures in the world, they do seem as if. And I mean, look, we found an ancient Greek computer. That in it, like legitimate scientists, and this isn't just a conspiracy theory, there is an actual computer that was found from ancient Greece, the first computer that they think of, right? So I think it's just kind of, I think we especially when it comes to academia in terms of ancient civilizations, we're so set on not looking beyond the preconceived notions of what was. We're not willing to look outside of that. um, there was this TV show on a while ago. What was a documentary, and it was about how long would it take for the world to erase our footprints from the surface of the earth. Like, let's say society collapses today, and in 1,000 years, some ancient or some alien race comes and checks out the planet. It's a very small window of time before Mother Nature and natural events completely erase our existence, other than maybe say like small things like plastic or metal, right? But yet these stone monuments like the pyramids, ziggurats, are still left for years after. So that to me tells me that we've had roughly about 200,000 years of possible time for civilizations to rise and fall. We've seen structures at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico that haven't been on the surface for thousands and thousands of years. So I certainly think that history isn't even close to painting a bigger picture. Now, if we're getting into some of the conspiracy theories like Tartarian, things like that, I don't really subscribe to that, because I haven't seen evidence, and I think it's just a lot of people just making things up. But I think there's a history that we have yet to uncover, and I'm fascinated by that, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I love all that stuff. I love you mentioned the pyramids. I'm like big into the pyramids and uh, even the conspiracy parts. I love looking at that kind of stuff. It's just fun to watch and listen to, and
Yeah.
you know, uh, it just makes you wonder, and it makes you, like you said, seek more answers.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Though I
yeah,
don't, I when I was like younger and I used to watch Ancient Aliens, I used to kind of buy into every single theory on there. I still love
mhm,
watching the theories, but I don't necessarily think they built the pyramids. I just think, there was definitely some visitations from the phenomenon at some point or another, but that's as far as I know. And in a big part of me, if you caught me a year and a half ago, I'd have been a little bit less skeptical sounding. But for my own credibility and accountability, I do try to be like that voice of reason in the middle of like the craziness and the realisticness. So um, just because I want to make sure that people can challenge me online too, like on Are They Really Here, and say, hey, you know what, this is wrong. Because if I can't admit that I'm wrong, I can't grow, right? So that's kind of
Right.
where I lie in the middle.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of why I do this show is it just to spew my own thoughts. It's to get good information out there, and at the very least have it be middle of the road. You know, I don't try to go too far to the right on one and too far to the left on the other. Because if you're doing that, you're kind of forcing stuff down people's throat.
Yeah.
And I try to stay in the middle of the road and let people decide what they want to decide. I can tell you my experiences, my encounters, my sightings, or whatever, and from my perspective. But if somebody wants to make a their own mind on what happened to me, that's fine. But I'll never tell anybody else that's not what happened to you. That's not what you saw. That's not what you experienced.
Hmm.
I'll because that's just not right. I don't think. I'll yeah. So what do you got going on? What's up next for you, man? Do you do any investigations or research yourself?
So other than just so I do a lot of research in terms of reading books, reading articles, watching videos, trying to debunk them. I do go outside and try to UFO hunt. Right now it's a little difficult as I do work a full-time job. So I get up every day, work 8 to 5. And then as soon as I get off work, I immediately go live for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I film 2 videos for the next day to schedule them out. So right now is my schedule is pretty filled up. My eventual goal, I do want to do this full time because this is my passion. I mean, you mentioned like you can see my face light up, and other people have mentioned that too. And um, I still love my day job, but this is my dream, and I'm living my dream right now. Like I told me 2 years ago I'd be doing this, I'd be like, "You're crazy," There's no way I'm gonna make it that far.
Right.
So my eventual plan, and this is I don't know when I'll be able to do this, but I'd love to do UFO hunting on the road. I'd love to travel across some of the hot spots in the United States, go through Canada with some type of band, get my dog, go UFO hunting, and then also put on like live shows, that like concert halls and things like that, where I can meet some of the people that watch me, meet the fans. We can watch UFO videos on a big screen. I can do interviews with abductees or let's say a UFO researcher, and then see where it goes from there. Eventually, I want to do full length documentaries as well, because I'm really passionate not just about the UFO side of things, but the artistic side as well. Both from a production standpoint, but also a music standpoint, and just really diving into the journal, like the journalism of it. So my passion isn't just in the UFO; it's every area of every. So this is why I'm like, this is what I should be doing. Like I shouldn't be working the 9 to 5. I should be moving towards this because everything in me is just telling me to do it. So that's kind of like the long term goal. When I can get that up and running, I have no idea. I mean, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, but that's kind of the eventual goal. That's what's up next for me. And Are They Really Here?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the story of my life right now. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. And I'd love to do this full time because I love doing it. And I think I told you that's where I got the name Beyond the Woodline, coming from a Bigfoot researcher and being in the woods and the forest all the time.
Great
So
name, by the
that's
way. I absolutely love it. It's perfect. It's like it's spooky, it's mysterious, but it's adventurous. Like it's just it makes me want to go see what's beyond the wood line behind my house right now.
right, right, yeah, yeah, and I love it, man. It's great stuff. So, what do you do when you're not doing all this? I like to get the people, an opportunity to get to know you a little bit. When you're not doing the UFO stuff, man, what are you doing in
Um,
your spare time?
music is a huge thing. So music, I would actually say rivals my passion for UFOs. So this is how insane I am. So since September, while working my full-time job and putting out daily videos, I've also released 25 full length songs that I post to my YouTube. They're not great. Like I'm not the best songwriter, but it's something I'm passionate about. A lot of them I do use to score the Are They Really Here videos. But I do electronic, I do rock, a little bit of rap. My voice isn't great, but I'm working on it. But I've been playing guitar since I was 12, self-taught, bass, drums, piano, uh, not really saxophone. I used to play in grade 8, but yeah, music's a huge part of my life. I have a dog named Watson, 2 cats. Absolutely, I'm a huge animal guy. So I go on lots of walks with him, hang out with friends, play a little bit of video games. Though I don't love it. I feel like video games are kind of just my way of socializing without leaving the house. I don't really enjoy playing them. I just kind of do them just to hang out with friends. But I'm also a huge movie buff as well. Yeah, I've seen most of the movies on IMDb top 250. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So what's like your favorite UFO alien movie?
That's a great question. Close Encounters of the Third Time is good. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a classic. I just recently saw Nope, which everybody's like, "How did you just recently saw that?" But my best friend had bought tickets for the opening night last year, and we were gonna go, but I had an infection, and I ended up in the ER on the opening night, and so we had to miss it. I was sick as a dog last summer, but I finally watched it like 2 weeks ago, and then it was great. Yeah, it was quite horrific, but yeah, either Close Encounters or Nope. Science is really good. Paul's probably classic just because it's so funny, right?
Right, right, right. Have you seen Communion?
No, I haven't actually. Because somebody else told me to watch that. Yeah, like yesterday on my
Oh, you
live.
need to watch.
I gotta
Yeah,
watch it.
man, you would. Yeah, you gotta watch it. Yeah. My friend from Canada, she told me about it, and she's like, "Hey, you need to get this." So I got it, and I checked it out. It was pretty good.
Canadians have good
Yeah,
taste, eh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They do. Yeah. Oh shit, man. So tell everybody where they can find you, your channels, your pages, or your websites, or whatever you got.
Yeah, pretty much. Are they really here? Without the question, all one word. Are they really here on pretty much any platform? We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Rumble even. Though the two differences: Snapchat, Twitter. There's a few name variations, but also the best place to find us on our website, arethereallyhere.com. Most of our social links are attached to there. But yeah, at Are They Really Here on pretty much anything. Yeah, I really appreciate the shout out there, and hope to see a lot of you on there.
Yeah. Um, what about an email? Like if someone wants to contact you with a sighting or an encounter that they had, do
Yeah,
you have an
so
email?
all of our so TikTok, our DMs are kind of closed right now, but any of our pages DMs are open. That's typically where I point people towards. My email address, which I am working on getting a better email address, but it's Are They Really Here PC as in podcast at gmail.com. That's Are They Really Here PC as in like Peter Charlie at gmail.com. But yeah, we love getting fan submissions. We don't always use them, just warning everybody, because sometimes people send just like one light in the sky, and it's like that could be a satellite. I can't really post that because, and also for the sake of, like, I need a little bit more meta information. So we do post the best stuff we get, which is very far and few between, but we encourage anybody, if they have great footage, to send it in to us. And we'll review it, or even stories. Like we would love to do. I'd love to do more videos on stories that aren't as known, because there's so many of these amazing stories out there. Like, let's say, for example, the Travis Walton story that I and those are my favorite videos to make on Are They Really Here? Those long form like story where I have the visuals behind me. I actually prefer them over UFO videos, but that's an idea. If you have any abduction stories, anything like that, guys, love to see it.
Yeah. And if you guys can't get a hold of them for whatever reason, hit me up, and I'll rattle the bushes a little bit
I'll do the
and
same
get
for
them talking.
Bigfoot for you, Joe.
Yeah, there you go, man. Yeah, yeah. You need to look up Mike Woolley's encounter and talk about that. You'd like Mike Woolley and his encounter.
I would
Um,
love that. I would definitely look it up.
um, yeah. So yeah, man. That's it, man. Dude, I really appreciate you doing the show. We got to do it again.
100%.
Dude, and like I said, man, I love your passion, and I think it's a great thing. And I think if uh, you hold on to that, man, you're gonna do great. You'll you're gonna do great. I know you will. So
Thank you, Joe. Maybe
everybody,
we could go UFO hunting and Bigfoot hunting together someday.
there you go, man. Yeah, maybe we'll find a Bigfoot flying a UFO. Who knows, right?
Also riding Loch Ness Monster. That'd be great. I love it.
Yeah, with a ghost holding on tight.
Let's do it.
Um, yeah, and yeah, so yeah, guys, that's the end of the show. You guys in the chat room, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you guys. You guys always do a great job, and I will see you guys next Monday. I have a show. I can't remember who's coming on, but I have a show next Monday, of course. And you guys, you guys be good, treat each other nice. And Ben, man, thanks a lot again. I do appreciate it. I know you're a busy person, so thanks a lot. And if you have anything you want me to share, man, tag me in it, send it to me, whatever. I'll share the hell out of it, man.
Thank you so much, Joe.
And,
It's been great.
and hold on real quick, and everybody else, you